Good day, Canada. Good afternoon, Asia. It's Thursday. It is 12 p.m. in Toronto, and we're getting back to our regular webinars on immigration and visas. So today we'll briefly talk about the immigration opportunities for foreign students in Canada. So depending on a study program, depending on its length, province where the foreign student studies and graduates, and also on employment prospects, of course, foreign students usually apply for permanent residency in Canada, choosing from a number of available immigration programs. So nowadays, when chances for an individual to immigrate to Canada are highly dependent on express entry selection process, immigration through studies in Canada, it could be named a truly independent immigration pathway, simply because there are immigration opportunities that work regardless of express entry region, desire and ability of Canadian employer to receive an LMIA and other factors alike. So to immigrate to Canada and you're seeking a way to step aside from express entry, I would strongly say that, yep, in this situation, immigration for the students would probably be the best option for you. So now, let's see how a foreign graduate in Canada could become a permanent resident. We've structured our webinar today in a very simple way. I'll go briefly from the general requirements of Canadian Experience class. I would then start from the Canadian West, from British Columbia, and would move east towards the Atlantic provinces, so one by one. Well, of course, just for the sake of saving some time, we'll skip the most widely known to the students, Ontario, Quebec, and instead we'll rather focus on more on programs that are not so widely known and not so popular today. So let's go ahead, and as I promised, we'll begin with the well-known Canadian Experience class. Though it's designed for foreign students in Canada, there's basically no magic in becoming a foreign worker after graduation. So program eligibility criteria are quite simple. Applicants have to meet the following minimum requirements. So what they have to do, they have obtained at least 1 year of skilled professional or technical work experience in Canada within 36 months of the application date. Minimum of CLB 5, it's called initial intermediate, or 7, adequate intermediate proficiency of language requirement depending on the level of the job. And of course, you have to plan, live, and work outside of the province of Quebec, simply because Quebec has separate agreement with the federal authorities. They have their own immigration programs and initiatives. So now applicants could remain in Canada throughout the application process. However, the Canadian Experience class is also open to individuals who are no longer in Canada, provided that they submit their application within 3 years of leaving their job in Canada. Well, Canadian Experience class, those requirements are based on a pass or fail model, which means that there is no points grid in this program. If the minimum requirements above are met, the applicant is eligible to enter the express entry pool. But here's the catch. This immigration option does not depend on express entry, and chances, it actually does depend on express entry, sorry, and chances are the candidate would be stuck in express entry pool for some time before he or she is selected to finalize the immigration process, which is not always the great thing, especially if you're here in Canada, if you don't want to leave the country during your immigration process and afterwards. So in that case, probably you have to consider other options. And speaking of other options, about British Columbia first. The BC PNP Skills Immigration stream is an economic immigration option intended for people with the skills, experience, and qualifications needed by British Columbia employers. So this stream is designed for individuals who are committed to live and work in British Columbia and who are, of course, residents of Canada. If you have recently graduated from BC post-secondary institution with a master's degree or doctoral degree in the natural, applied, or health sciences, you could be eligible for the BC PNP International Postgraduate category. You do not need a job offer from an employer to apply in this category. As a BC international graduate, if you have graduated from an eligible Canadian post-secondary institution with a degree, diploma, or certificate within the past 2 years, which does not necessarily mean that you have to have master's or doctoral program, you may still apply under the category. But in this case, you will have to have a permanent full-time job offer for a skilled occupation. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward, I believe. Let's just move ahead to the other provinces. Province of Alberta. Now, Alberta offers a number of streams in its PNP for candidates graduated from Alberta colleges and universities. And here's the most affordable one. As a candidate, you must clearly show in the application that you're able to and intend to live permanently in Alberta. You have to be working full-time in Alberta at the time of application for an Alberta employer. You have obtained a certificate, a diploma, a degree, or have completed a graduate level program from one of the approved Alberta public and private institutions. So the program of study in Alberta should be at least 1 year, which is pretty obvious, right? I mean, if you're studying less than that, you don't even need a study permit. Have a current and valid post-graduation work permit issued by CIC, which is obvious as well. Now here's the interesting part. You must be working in categories 0, A, B, or even C in the National Occupation Classification. So if you're working in an NOCC occupation, you have to submit official language test results showing that you meet the minimum language standards. That is lovely, simply because lots of applicants, lots of students who graduate from a college or from a university in Canada, they could have some issues in terms of finding a job, and especially entry-level positions such as a hostess in a restaurant or a waiter. It does not necessarily fall in the category of 0A or B. While in Alberta, C, the category C is also accepted, which is lovely, of course. Now going forward, Saskatchewan. First stream for students who have graduated from a Saskatchewan Institute. So you could apply in this SAP category if you have graduated from a recognized post-secondary educational institution in Saskatchewan with a certificate, with a diploma, or a degree. You have worked at least 6 months of paid employment in Saskatchewan. And in this case, it could mean you worked on campus, you worked off campus, there was a co-op experience, right? It could be a work experience which you gained after you graduated, but again, it's 6 months combined experience, which is almost nothing, right? During your studies, say you were studying for 1 year or for 2 years, you can get that 6 months of work experience while you were still at a college or at a university. But in this case, for the case of this program, you have to receive a full-time job offer to an employer, which is always sort of a challenge for many applicants. Not like a big deal, but still it's sort of a thing lots of people are struggling with. Another option for you is you have a program at Saskatchewan where you have graduated, say, from a 2-year program. Again, it could be diploma, it could be a degree. You've received your postgrad work permit in Saskatchewan, and you have worked 2 years, 24 consecutive months in Saskatchewan after graduation. In this situation, in this case, in the second scenario, you will not have to submit that full-time job offer. So in case you're having problems, or in case in your industry where you're working, it's very common for people to work on a contract instead of having like full-time job offer. In this situation, you have an option of working for 2 years, and without the job offer, you could apply immediately for immigration. Going further east, we're looking at Manitoba. After graduation, so many international students from around the world, they choose Manitoba as their new home. And Manitoba is a place where you can raise your family, of course, stay in touch with the culture, reach your personal and professional goals, etc., etc. And as a graduate from a designated learning institution in Manitoba, you would be eligible to apply for the Manitoba Provincial Nominee Program under the Skilled Workers in Manitoba category. And you could do this after 6 months of continuous full-time work in Manitoba. If you have received a letter of employment, so that full-time job offer, pretty much the same situation as with the Saskatchewan. So if you worked for 6 months, right, and you got the full-time job offer in Manitoba, well, congratulations, you could apply straight away to Manitoba skilled workers category. Another situation is pretty interesting. If you have graduated from a designated learning institution in another Canadian province or in another Canadian territory, that's what lots and lots of graduates in Ontario actually do. So they study in Ontario, for example, or they study in Alberta, and in case of any challenges, they can move to Manitoba, find employment in there. But in this situation, if you got a degree or diploma from a post-secondary institution in another province, your requirement is to work for 1 year instead of 6 months. So in simple words, as I said, it means that you can just study anywhere in Canada, and if you have found a job in Manitoba, you could use PNP as an easy immigration stream. Moreover, you do not necessarily have to initially move from one province to another, say from Ontario to Manitoba, before you find that job offer. Like, based on my personal experience, it works perfectly fine when you graduate in Ontario. When you're looking for a job in Manitoba, you simply apply. Most of the interviews are conducted online, and only when you got that permanent full-time job offer, you can pack your stuff, move to Manitoba. Pretty simple, and it works perfectly fine. Well, as I said, we will skip, for now at least, we will skip Ontario because pretty much lots of you already know how Ontario works. Besides, in our previous webinars, we discussed Ontario. We will skip Quebec simply because, again, it's quite popular program, not a big deal finding their requirements. If you still want to know them, let me know about that and we will discuss it for sure. But right now, I would love to focus on one interesting program which has been opened quite recently. That is the Nova Scotia. Offers nomination for graduates without an offer of employment. Instead, they are required to run their own business in the province. So what they do in Nova Scotia, they have that international graduate entrepreneur stream, which is designed and tailored for the recent graduates of a Nova Scotia university or the Nova Scotia Community College. So colleges could apply as well, which is much cheaper. And students must have already started or bought a business in Nova Scotia and operated it for at least 1 year. So if you intend to settle in Nova Scotia, you could be nominated with the provincial support for these, using this program for the permanent residency. Now, in order to meet this requirement, you have to, of course, want to live permanently in Nova Scotia while owning and actively managing a Nova Scotia business. You have to have at least 1 year of continuous experience actively managing and owning your current Nova Scotia business. It should be 100% of ownership, like 100%. You should have completed a degree or diploma of at least 2-year academic full-time study. It should be a college, it should be a college or a university. You have to have a valid post-graduation work permit, have to have at least a score of CLB 7 in speaking, listening, reading, and writing in English or in French, which is always not a big deal. If you have graduated from a community college or from a university in Manitoba, it shouldn't be a challenge for you. You should complete an expression of interest and receive an invitation from the Nova Scotia Office of Immigration. Now, let me just put it in very simple words for you guys. So here's what Nova Scotia is essentially telling you. If you have graduated from a college or university, if you want to run your own business, which is pretty simple stuff, I specifically put it on the slide that you can open a company typically within 20 minutes of online, so depending on how fast you would click with the mouse. So that's one of the simplest ways you can do. So essentially you're creating a workplace for yourself. Whenever we're saying that you're opening a business in Nova Scotia, please don't be scared of it. Doesn't necessarily mean that you have to open a factory or buy a factory. It could be a small business, it could be a consultant, it could virtually be anything, right? Like if you're an IT guy and you want to sell your brains, your knowledge, you can easily, like within 20 minutes, by a click, open the company. You could run and manage this small business for 1 year, and this and only this fact would allow you to be considered and apply under the International Graduate Entrepreneur Stream in the Nova Scotia. It is wonderful. It is great news, I believe, for many, many students, especially for the young students who are looking to come and just bring their knowledge from abroad to Canada. Look, it's one of the best opportunities I've ever seen, right? Instead of like putting yourself into that box when you're looking for an employer with the definitely limited employment opportunities in a small Atlantic province, what you have to do is just to open your business, offer your services to the external world, and based on just on that fact, you could get the permanent residency in Canada. That is awesome. Now, all in all, as I said, similar immigration streams, of course, are offered by other Canadian provinces. I mean, similar to those which we just discussed. So it could be Newfoundland and Labrador. They got more or less similar programs. So there in New Brunswick, in Prince Edward Island, in Quebec, and etc. While, of course, those programs, they are differ in particulars, eligibility criteria and principles of nominations are quite similar. Foreign students has to demonstrate good employability in a province. And the major difference between these provincial pathways and the well-known federal skilled worker program and Canadian experience class is that very often there is no requirement for the employer to receive that LMIA. In fact, those provincial immigration streams for foreign students offer just another way of receiving extra 600 points in express entry system. So the math here is very simple. Instead of working for an employer with a valid LMIA to receive those points, an applicant gets the same score for provincial nomination by working for a Canadian employer without the need to receive LMIA, or just in case when we discuss it with the Nova Scotia, even working for yourself. Therefore, all of these immigration streams are virtually unaffected by the express entry selection process due to the fact that successful candidate receives certification of nomination from a province, which increases your chances in express entry system by 600 points, which virtually guarantees your positive selection. In conclusion, I would say that immigration opportunities mentioned in today's webinar, of course, they represent a small part of all available programs. It's of course virtually impossible to cover all of them. And what I wanted to do is just to give you a sense how Canadian Experience class, which is of course tremendously popular, this program does not necessarily represent all the ways and the only ways to immigrate for the student, right? If you're as a student looking to immigrate, I would strongly recommend considering other options, especially the example I gave you with the Manitoba. That example usually applies to other provinces. So say you could, for example, study in Ontario, which is obviously a good choice simply because you would be exposed to many employers, you would be exposed to many communities, and your chances for immigration there would be quite high. But in case you get a job offer from another province, you could easily relocate in there, and you get, based just on the fact that you got that offer of employment, you would be able to apply for various immigration streams available for the students in that province, so which will give you more options and more ways to immigrate. Now, just to wrap up our webinar for today, there are, as I said, many immigration programs in Canada. I just don't want to list all of them, right? This is the list of provinces and territories which have their own programs, and not necessarily just the programs available for the students. I am more than confident that most of the listeners today could apply for one or another program if approached professionally and carefully. programs that do not require investments. There are programs which do not necessarily require you to come here for study. Just feel free to ask, and we'll do our best to assess your chances and help you out with them. Well, as an expert team, we're here to assist, to help you select, to help you compare past immigration programs. And speaking about the team and the contacts, you may see on the slide our direct contacts, of course, so feel free to come and ask your questions. And at the same time, we have a local team in the Bangladesh. That's the Visa Center. It's a company of experts, a company of our friends, of those who could support you locally. So feel absolutely free contacting them. I would say that if you're from Bangladesh, you could consider yourself really lucky simply because the team in Bangladesh is extremely skilled. They are qualified to help and to assist you, and feel absolutely free coming to them. I know that those guys would do their absolutely best to support you. Thank you. Thank you so much for being with me today. Next time, we'll talk about immigration for IT professionals. So what we'll do, we'll shed a light on available programs and on specific streams which were tailored for software engineers and for for professionals in the IT field, because there are many of them. Multiple programs are available, and we will talk about what could be done right away, right now, which provinces are taking IT specialists, which are considering home. So stay tuned with us. And for now, on this point, thank you and goodbye.